Okay, should I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone. I'm here today to discuss the Anatomy 498 research project, which is part of the undergraduate program within the Division of Anatomy. And first I'm going to introduce myself. I'm the professor and the chair of the Division of Anatomy in the Department of Surgery at the University of Toronto. My name is Cindi Morshead. I'm also the Anatomy 498 course coordinator, so I'm well suited to discuss this. I have Carrie Laughlin with me. She is the Anatomy undergraduate coordinator. She helps with all that happens in this course, and she's a fantastic resource. And then I also am happy to have with us today Emilio Garcia Flores. He is a graduate student, and he took an Anatomy 498 course in his senior year, and he's here to talk a little bit about his experience and answer any questions that you may have regarding this course. So what is Anatomy 498? It is a full credit upper level course. It's offered in 2 sessions, both the fall and winter academic session, as well as offered as a summer course. It affords hands-on experience in a research laboratory. And I want to keep that in mind. That's really the goal of this course, is to give you that hands-on experience in a lab, not just necessarily performing assays, but learning what the assays mean and how you can interpret the findings and use those assays that you may have learned in other courses in order to ask a specific hypothesis-driven question. And I'll come back to that. So what qualifies for an Anatomy 498 project is really anything within a broad range of topics, which includes things like histology, cellular and molecular biology, developmental biology, neuroscience, gross anatomy. There's a lot of contexts in which we feel that the Anatomy 498 experience can be driven from. And so there's not a lot of prerequisites to get into this course, but you do need the permission of the supervisor. And this is not always something that's easy to come by, but I'll give you a few clues at the end as to how we expect students to be able to take advantage of the spectacular research opportunities that are on campus for an undergraduate student. So I should say here that potential supervisors, which I'll go in a little bit more detail how you might find one, they do have the latitude to accept students according to their own needs. So what I want to emphasize here is that it is the professor themselves that has the capacity to say, this is not what I'm looking for in an undergraduate student who will succeed in my lab. So for example, they may want a student with more background in, say, neuroscience, if they're from a neuroscience lab. Or they may feel that that's not important for their particular project, and they may want someone with a little bit more biochemistry in their background. So it really is up to the professor to make this decision. Again, something that you would need to talk to them. And they may think that they don't have any special requirements. They may have wanted you just to take a lab course, so you know what a Western blot is. So again, this is all about what the supervisor is actually looking for. So it's a really great opportunity to experience research, certainly a different way of thinking about what you learn, especially when you're in life science courses. Often it's here's a book and memorize it and you'll be tested next week. And this is how we learn. There's nothing wrong with that, but this is a very different opportunity. And it really can set you up for, in a very positive way, for whether you like the idea of doing hypothesis-driven research and whether this is something you'd want to do and maybe enter into a graduate program. So in a lot of cases, depending on the lab that you're in, you might also get an experience of what it would be like, a flavor or a taste of what it might be like to be a graduate student by joining in for lab meetings, journal clubs, etc. So that's also another bonus about doing one of these Anatomy 498 courses. I want to say that one of the expectations of this course is that it is going to give you experience with hypothesis-driven projects. So what we don't want and will not accept in this program for credit is systematic reviews. The expectation is also that you'll spend a minimum, it's a regular course, are spent in the lab. So in terms of the evaluations, they're actually quite minimal, considering the experience that you're going to have. Again, experience is what we're looking for you to be able to garner from this course. There is a 10% fellowship application, which is really a document about 1,000 words where you would give the background, rationale, your hypothesis and objectives for your project, as well as methods. Again, 1 to 2 pages. What are the methods that you need to complete the course? Both of these are due in the fall, about 6 to 8 weeks apart. So not a lot in terms of requirements, written assessments in the first term. You then will need to do a progress report. There are also 2 assignments in the winter term, a progress report, which says what you've done to date. This would include any graphs, any data that you've generated, as well as, maybe most important, what are you planning to do to complete your study? What will you do over the next 6 weeks to really focus down? A good time to chat with your supervisor and figure out what is needed so that you can feel like you've put a close to a specific question or addressed your hypothesis. You'll also be required to do an oral presentation. This would be in person, as we are allowing now, which is great. And it'll be about a 10-minute presentation, platform presentation. And you will also submit that presentation with an overview of how, sorry, that's not the right word, a recorded version of your talk that you will submit to the PI, and that is worth 30%. The other 35%, so you can see the biggest chunk of what you're graded on is really the ownership of the project. So this is your participation during the year and the ownership of the project, which is really determined by your supervisor, who will take into account a number of different aspects of the work. So they are going to base their grade on your understanding of the project and how it relates to relevant research that's being done in the area, both in the lab that you're in, as well as out in the research community. It's going to take into account the hours and the effort that you invested in the project, the technical skills that you learned, that you were able to accomplish when you were in the lab. Also, the quality of the data and the data analysis. Not all experiments work. There's no expectation that you're going to be able to publish a paper from the work you've done in an undergraduate research project. But at the same time, there's lots of instances where, people are able to get their names on a paper because they contributed some really quality data and graphs to work that's in progress. So the quality of the data is critical, as well as the data analysis. And what they're really looking for, and what we hope you grow in this undergraduate course, as we do think of it as a stepping stone to graduate school, is we want you to take ownership of the project. So of course, at first, when you come to the lab, you don't know anything. You're there to learn. You will be at the mercy of the other people who are teaching you what to do in that space. And you will contribute as you are told, if you will. And then as the project progresses, what we're looking for, are you now dictating? Are you saying, wow, this didn't work. This is how I'm going to ask this question in a new way? Or are you saying, let me just wait and be told what to do next? So those are very different experiences. And we hope that what you'll be able to do in terms of taking ownership of the project is be a big part in saying, what's going to come next? How do you interpret this data? Are there other interpretations? All of these things are important for how the faculty, your PI, will actually be accountable for that 35% of your mark. So how do you go about thinking about getting into doing an Anatomy 498 project? A lot of the same considerations you would want to take for starting graduate school, but with the knowledge that this is just an experience that you're going to get to help you decide if you are interested in next steps, for example, or it may be important for determining what you are not interested in doing. But the most important thing to do first is, of course, pick a field of research that is of interest to you. And then within that field, you want to contact potential supervisors who are working in that area of interest. The next thing is you need to, of course, arrange a meeting to discuss your interests. So I'm going to just say that you have to have a faculty member lead this, because you're getting a course credit for this course and the Anatomy 498. You must have a faculty member at the University of Toronto. So they don't have to be on campus per se. They can be situated at one of the hospitals, for example, but they have to be a faculty member, and which means that they're able to give marks and to be part of the curriculum. So the student and the supervisor would then get together, discuss what might be of interest to you. And of course, the supervisor probably has something in mind for what they would give to a student who's only going to spend compared to a graduate student, 8 to 10 hours a week in the lab. So this is really important. You're not expected to come into this with a hypothesis. Your supervisor is going to help you develop one. You're not coming into this as an expert. You're coming in with an interest. You're motivated. You're enthusiastic. This is what people are looking for in their 498 students. So how do you grab the interest of a supervisor? I'm going to tell you, they're very busy people. They get hundreds of emails a day. So how do you stand out? And so the first thing to make sure you do is you do your own research. Figure out what this person, this PI, is doing in their lab, and you send them an email that is directly to them. And you might want to mention something about something that you've read that was of particular interest to you. Not going to their website and reading off what my lab does and then putting that in an email, but being more directed towards them. It's not dear sir, madam, it's dear Dr. X, whoever it is that you're reaching out to. You want to make sure that they have the information they need to know whether this is something that they're interested in chatting with you about. So you want to make sure you attach your transcripts and your resume. Transcripts aren't only important for marks. Some PIs will have a choice of 10 people. They may choose the people which they feel have the best marks. Other people are really more interested in what kind of courses have you taken? Do you have the right background? Are you the most enthusiastic person that I've spoken to? And have you taken an interest in my work before you reach out to me so that you know this is something you're interested in? You want to keep your email very brief. People don't have time to read very long and extensive emails. So it's good to just keep that in mind when you're preparing it, brief and to the point, and also be patient. So the same way you would if you were looking for a supervisor for a graduate degree. If they don't get back to you, don't expect a response within hours, certainly. But if they haven't got back to you in about a week, it might be worth reaching out to them again and saying, just following up on an email that I sent previously. And again, be patient and don't rely on, you may not get a response, and just have that in your mind so it doesn't, strike you as weird or that you were unsuccessful and it was your fault, because that's probably not the case. So there are literally hundreds of people who can supervise an Anatomy 498 course. They can serve as potential supervisors. There's hundreds. What we have to help you kind of narrow it down and something to maybe take a look at is we have at the link that I'm showing you here, a short list of faculty who have previously supervised Anatomy 498 students. So this will give you an idea of sort of the scope and breadth of the research that would be considered relevant for this project. So it might be worth it. It's certainly not an exhaustive list, and you can certainly find people outside of that list to supervise you. So I just briefly wanted to say that once you do identify a supervisor, the goal is to then complete the Anatomy 498 ballot form. This will then be submitted to Carrie, who is the coordinator for this, the administrative coordinator. It needs to be completed with a description of the research, because there are research projects that are not appropriate for this project, and we need to screen them before we will put you in Rosie, if we have approved your supervisor as well as approved the course that you, the project that you're describing. And the description of the research would be done in collaboration with your supervisor. That would also make it obvious whether you're sort of both on the same page as to what the expectations are in terms of the project you'll be doing. So that was my brief introduction. I think I stuck to my timeline, so that's great. And now I'd like to introduce Emilio. Emilio graduated in 2021 with a degree in neuroscience and physiology. He did a year final project in his, an ANA 498 project in the Morshead lab, my lab, in his final year. And he's currently a master's student at the Institute of Biomedical Engineering. Emilio.
Hey everyone. Yeah, so my name is Emilio and I'm here to share a little bit more about the ANA 498 course. Can everyone hear me? Yep. Perfect. So I mean, really my goal is to give you a good snapshot of my experience going through the ANA 498 course and similar research courses. So my story, give you a little bit of a few years ago, like it's written on there, I was an undergraduate student doing a neuroscience specialist and a physiology major. And I'm sure like many here, I was coming up on the end of my degree and I had to decide what to do next, where I had to go. Naturally, graduate studies was one of the first options I thought about, but I'm someone who's very hands-on and I love to be doing things with my hands. I'm not sure if you can see behind me, but my guitar is there. It's a little bit blurred out, but I love to be doing things with my hands. And this was the problem because prior to this, I had very limited lab experience. And aside from lab courses and research assignments here and there, I really had no idea what it would be like to work in a lab, to carry out projects, and to even get your master's or more, PhD and such in research. And I think this is a very critical thing for students considering graduate studies. It's really like you're opening up a door for the first time and you absolutely have no idea what's on the other side. But there's nothing preventing you from informing your decisions as much as possible beforehand. And this is where I think I found the research course ANA 498 most valuable. So ANA 498, why did I enjoy it? I think, as we've highlighted already, one of the primary reasons that I loved it was because you have the freedom to choose to participate in what interests you. So in my case, I was all about neuro back then, and I still am. And the wonderful thing was that I was able to look up and seek out to work in labs and with professors that studied whatever interested me. So like I said, in my context, I was in my upper years, and back then I thought I really loved the learning and development aspects of neuroscience. Maybe a little bit of stem cells, though I wasn't too sure at the time. And so I did my first research course working actually with zebrafish. Only to find that although I loved the project and I loved the team and the environment that I was working in, I really wasn't enchanted with those topics as much as I thought I originally was. And so here for me, the research course served, in my opinion, their ultimate purpose. They helped me get a taste of the research in X field. And although I didn't love it, which totally happens, it made me think to myself, okay, maybe I don't want to jump into a master's in this topic here. And further to that, I was actually lucky enough to come back the following year and do another research course. And this was the ANA 498 project. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences I had. So this time, working with stem cells, working with mice, a little bit more behavior, still working very much with my hands and in just different contexts, it really hit off and it helped guide me to where I wanted to go. Fast forward to today, I'm doing now my master's and I'm starting it in the same topics that I did my ANA project in. So I think this was really one of the most valuable things that I appreciated from the ANA 498 course is that you have the freedom to explore and really just inform yourself about what it might be like to continue research or graduate studies in the topics that interest you. Another thing that I really enjoyed about the ANA 498 course is that it really didn't seem like a course at all to me, but rather a project. I mean, it really isn't so much about the assignments or the lecture sessions, which of course there's still a few, and they help guide and give structure to what you're doing, but it's much more about the project. And this goes back to what Cindi was mentioning about the ownership of the project. The work that you take on at the start of the year, the question that you choose to answer and work towards, that really becomes your own. And how you go about the year trying to answer it is really the center focus of the ANA 498 course. And I think it's really important to highlight this because a lot of the things that I got to do in the course then are things that I'm finding myself doing now in my master's, from the readings and the small lit reviews to the troubleshooting of experiments and analyzing data, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely like one of the great aspects of ANA 498 was the hands-on component and the relevant skills that you're taking out of this. And yeah, again, this just helped to clear up a window into what graduate studies would look like. Now, mindful of the time and without taking up much more, I also wanted to highlight one more quality of the ANA 498 course, and this was the really nice opportunity to just build connections with people you're working with. And so for those thinking about this, this was a wonderful opportunity to expand in your own professional development, as well as just make some strong connections. In my context, this was really about being able to attend the lab meetings and participate, hear about what other members in the lab were doing, and get to know them at a much more personal level than you would, for example, if they were giving a lecture in front of you and 50 other people. And so, yeah, I see that we're at 2:50, so I'll cap myself there, but hopefully I've given you a good window of what the 498 project brought to me and how it was useful to me informing my decision as to whether I wanted to go on finishing my undergraduate.
That's great. Thank you so much. And with that, I think that we're happy to address, Emilio and I and Carrie are happy to address any questions you may have. And if not, we're always available to answer any questions that come up over time.
Yep, if anyone has any questions, just put in the Q&A or chat.
Okay. Are you, okay, so Emilio, this is for you. Are you doing your master's in the same lab you were working at for the ANA project?
Yes. So yeah, to answer this question, I think this is where I was touching on with the freedom to participate in what interests you and just to really decide whether you're enjoying what you're doing. I did my ANA project in the Morshead lab and I loved it so much. I loved what I was doing, which was working with spinal cords, stem cells, injury recovery, all of these fascinating topics that I decided to go on and do my master's in the same lab. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. I think that's probably it, Natasha. Oh, where can we find the application ballot form? And do students usually apply in their third or fourth year? So students can apply in their third or fourth year. Again, it depends on the supervisor. That's not a problem. I would say we have the majority would be in their fourth year, but there are some third year students as well that will definitely apply to do this project. And the application ballot form, if you just go to, I wonder, Carrie, can you put that link in the, thank you. We'll put it in this, in the chat here for you. You're welcome.
Yeah, sometimes questions come up
Yeah.
slowly.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not in a rush. I just thought it was, other people. Thanks, Carrie.
Any other questions? Please post it in the Q&A. We still have a little time. If there isn't any questions, do you have any other last minute things to say?
No, good luck to all of you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks.